Earth. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
So welcome. My name is Lori Allen, and I'm the MC and kind of gather the tellers together. All those different things go into us, but yet we are one community. And I think this is such a community building experience. It's something where face to face, which doesn't happen as much in this world. And we can all get together, and we're all different, and yet we work together in unity in a community like this. And this community that we have right now here, we'll never have again exactly the same way. So let's enjoy the fact that we can all be together, that we can all listen to some amazing storytellers. And they've got some really good stuff for us tonight. I'm hearing all kinds of little Twitters about this, that it's going to be a really, really fun event. And we even have a multimedia event. We'll have something on the screen later in the program. This is going to be a primo event, and I'm so glad that each of you are here. And I hope you will come back next year. We'll be also in January and bring even more people. Fill up the room, and we have this year. And I'm
1980, and I was a brand new missionary in the city of Messina, Italy, which is on the northeast corner of the island of Sicily. Now, Messina is a very large city, so instead of it going from door to door down the street, we would go to large apartment buildings and take the elevator up to the top floor, knock on all the doors on that floor. It being Italy, no one let us in, so we go down a floor, lather, rinse, repeat. Ask your grandparents. So we go into this apartment building, and we enter the elevator. And these elevators, they don't slide in, the doors don't slide into the walls. They're manually operated hinge doors. So we go into the elevator, and we realize that this one required a key to operate. And of course, we didn't have keys. Somebody had figured out the way the elevator operates, or keeps people out, really, is there's a mechanism in the floor that can tell when somebody's standing in the elevator. And when someone's in there, the elevator won't move unless you use the key, not even if you try to call it from another floor. And so somebody figured out, and at this point I've got to step away from the mic, but I'll try to talk loud. Someone figured out that if in the elevator you lean with your back against one wall and your arms against the side walls and your feet up in the air, and you're going to hold yourself up like you have somebody upstairs. So someone else had figured out that if, while spidering, you were able to push the button of the floor you were on and the floor you were trying to go to, the elevator would go up into it. So one missionary would go in, spider, go up the floor. The other missionary would bring the elevator back down, go in, spider, and take it up and go up to the top floor. Left leg, left arm, projector balanced on my chest, right arm, right leg, and I immediately flopped to the ground, land on the ground. Couldn't hold myself up. So I tried it again. Left arm, left leg, projector, right arm, right leg, and fall down again. Tried this a few times, and I thought, okay, this time I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to use friction to help me. I'm going to put my feet right in the corners of the elevator so that the side walls will help me stay up. Actually, the physics of that didn't work out, but that's what I was thinking at the time. And I'm going to push really hard this time. So I get in, back, left arm, left foot, right in the corner. Projector, right arm, right foot, pushing out as far as I can and to the side as much as I can. And I immediately slumped down to the floor again. Only this time, my shoe is still stuck up on the wall. And I try to pull, and I can't get it loose. So I pull my foot out of my shoe, and I look at it, and apparently when I was pushing against the wall, it bowed out. And because I was pushing to the side, my shoe slipped into the crack. And then when I released the pressure on the wall snapped back, and it grabbed my shoe just by the edge of my sole of my shoe. and it was stuck there. And I'm pulling and pulling and pulling on it, and I can't get it. Point out that if you or your children or grandchildren are ever called on a mission to Italy, now that I have taught you how to do the spider, remember it's against mission rules, and you're welcome.
Like I said, my name is Lance Conrad. I'm an author, a storyteller, and an old man. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Mr. Conrad, you look so young, strong, majestic. That's what you're thinking, right? Of course it was. And as true as that may be, fact remains I'm in fact an old man who has lost his daughter not once, but twice in public, calling around for while she was on his shoulders. Okay? He's among us. Names like Jacob, Rachel, Tiffany, Marcus, things like that. Yeah, Tiffany, very old. But Wendy is fairly new. And I know the story really well. It's a really fun story. Lots of twists and turns, an odd tie-in to mouthwash of all things. But then 3 days ago, an idea came into my head, an insidious idea, one of the most dangerous ideas that can infect the mind of a storyteller. What if I did it in verse? Some of you know what I'm talking about. So, I ask for your attention, I ask for your patience, and possibly your forgiveness. Because of course we do. The most daring to sail the ocean's blue. Long John Silver, the one-legged cook. So cunning, so charming, our favorite crook. But that's fiction, you cry. Why, that's only a story. Listen well, I reply, and I'll tell you of real glory. That pirate, I tell you, was founded in truth. The idea inspired by one particular youth. Young William was plagued, and he added a wife and a daughter. He just wouldn't stay down. Added friends, other authors, gained wealth and renown. But we shift focus now to one of his friends, a gifted author named Barry, who holds the means to our end. But it all started with a one-legged man so bold, and his angel daughter Margaret, who will never grow old.
Together in 3 days. I am impressed. And that's just the beginning of this community that we're building here today. And the things that we're feeling and the things that it's made you think of that are probably different than the things it makes me think of. And that's kind of interesting.
Story. You'll notice that there are no pickup trucks in it. You'll also notice that that the money they talk about, we don't have. I mean, she swept her house and she found a crooked sixpence. First clue. We don't have sixpences, do we? But she got all excited about the crooked $6. You know, she wasn't gonna buy a suckling or a wiener pig, and so she found $300 that day. And I thought, boy, I'd sweep my floor a lot more often too. If I could find $300. Anyway, she decided she was going to go to town and get that pig. And why she wanted the pig, I don't know. My husband said, bacon. Anyway, she got all dressed and to head for town, and she didn't get in her pickup truck. She didn't hitch up the horses. She decided she was going to walk. Yeah, that's what I said. I thought, where's the pickup truck? You can throw a cage in the back and you're ready to go. Dog won't bite pig. Pig won't go over the stile, and I'll never get home. But the water would not. That's when she saw the ox. Pig won't go up the stile, and I'll never get home. But the ox would not. And right then the butcher walked into the yard. I guess he had an appointment. Anyway, she said to the butcher, "Butcher, butcher, pen the ox. Ox won't drink the water. Water won't quench the fire. Fire won't burn the stick. Stick won't beat the dog. Dog won't bite the pig. And pig won't go over the stile and I'll never get home. And the butcher wouldn't. She saw a rope hanging on the fence. She said, rope, rope, beat that butcher. Butcher won't pen the ox. Ox won't drink the water. Water won't quench the fire. Fire won't burn the stick. Stick won't beat the dog. Dog won't bite the pig. And pig won't go over the stile and I'll never get home. And the water began to quench the fire, and the fire began to burn the stick. And the stick began to beat the dog, and the dog began to bite the pig, and the pig went right over the fence. And she got home in time to make chicken and dumplings for dinner.
Thinking about the many ways that we celebrate the new year. I mean, most of us stay up till past midnight. We eat more food than we should be, and the wrong kinds of things. We play games, watch movies, we visit, we set off fireworks, or some people do. Well, this year we decided to pans and big metal utensils to bang on them. I knew we better get out of there, because I knew his favorite New Year's ritual was to march around his neighborhood gonging his neighbors, waking up the dead for a few rounds. And we'd been roped into that before, so I said, let's go, Dan. I'm tired, let's go. So we did. As we drove home and we got out of the car, I looked up and saw the last of the fireworks going off. It was just past midnight. But then I saw something else in the dark, just crossing the moon, a silhouette of something kind of looked like Santa and his sleigh. But I thought, Christmas is over, it can't be Santa. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. This time it looked more like a ship with a dragon masthead. What? Then I saw the sail, and the sail looked like it had maybe a skull and crossbones. A pirate ship? What the heck? Are wa nan desu ka? Omoshiroi desu ne. Because now I could see that sail had a Japanese kanji on it, and it was the word for baku, which means bad dream eater. I thought, a ship with a dragon masthead and a kanji on the sail, what could this be? I know what this is. This is the takarabune, the treasure, the Japanese New Year's treasure ship that comes down every New Year's and brings gifts of good fortune to all of us. What a welcome sight. Those 7 people must be the Shichifukujin, the 7 lucky gods. And they're all very happy and dancing around. They're not the 7 dwarfs. Well, so who are they? They're dressed differently, and they carry different objects that represent the gifts they give. One has a fishing rod and a big red fish, and he grants the gift of abundance. Another has a big wooden mallet that when he dings it on something, gold coins fall out. He can grant you prosperity. Another one has a long white beard and a staff, and he can grant you a long life. And another has a long beard, but he's short, but he makes up for it in his big forehead. He can grant you wisdom. And then there's the god that is dressed in armor and could grant you protection from evil during the year. And then there's one woman, Benzaitin, that can grant you the wish of music and art and creativity. And then there's the biggest, jolliest, laughing God who can grant you contentment and happiness no matter what you're going through. Now, the two that Fukujukuro granted him without him knowing long life. Well, I don't know about you, but which of those gifts would you want in the new year? As for me, I think that I will take my chances because I don't want to choose the wrong thing and have the repercussions that the young farmer did, that it may not be the right gift at the right time. I'm gonna take a trip on that old treasure ship that's sailing down through the sky. I'm gonna dance and sing and tell the good fortune brings when they bid the old year goodbye.
tell Laurie what the title of my story is. Because I don't know myself. Until I get here and stand up and look at you. Oh, this crowd looks like they need this kind of a story. But this year, now I want you to pay attention, because this year I actually gave Laurie a title of my story, and I intend to tell that story. This is new. Well, okay, so set it up. My brother used to live in the town of Marysville, now in California. Anybody been to Marysville?
Not in California.
Okay. Marysville?
Utah.
No, California. Marysville, California. Yeah, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump up from Sacramento. So you know where it is now, right? If you was to take Sacramento down here and Placerville over here, then you'd find Marysville right up here at the top of the triangle. You know where Placerville is?
Yeah.
It's just a hop, skip, and a jump the other way from Sacramento. You know, a nice neighborhood and a lot of property behind him. And I went to visit it was late in the summertime one year, and I was going to be there for a week. And what I liked most was to sit on his back porch, because his back porch, sitting there, you could look out over the backyard. It kind of sloped down a bit. It was a good sized piece of property. It sloped down a bit, and there was a hedge on the one side between us and his neighbor. It wasn't a very tall hedge. It was, just kind of a hedge. And down at the bottom there were some trees, and there was a big old tree right down in the corner between the two properties. And the sunset and, all the water down there below. And it was nice. I would sit there and rock in the evenings and just enjoy that. It was really fun. Now, of course, from my chair, I could also see into the neighbor's yard, and they had some rabbit hutches. And now, you know what a rabbit hutch is? It's like a little house for rabbit, only they're like condominiums, they're like all squished together. Yeah, and up on stilts, so you didn't have to like clean out the cage because the rabbits did that themselves. Just saying. And I thought, oh my Lanta, he has got into the rabbit hutches next door, and he's got that rabbit, and it, in his mouth. And so I got the dog over, yeah, boy, come on over here, give me that. And he got the rabbit, okay, and sure enough, it was deader than a doornail. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be bad for my brother's sake. The dog got in, got the rabbit. And I thought, well, we'll do something about this. And so I kind of brushed the dirt off of that rabbit, and took it into it gets worse. Took it in and to the kitchen, okay, turned on that sprayer, there was some warm water, and I took some dish soap and I shampooed it all up really good, okay, it cleaned it up nicely, and especially the little part around his neck, and then I got a blow dryer, turned that kind of resting on his front paws like this, and he just looked great. He looked super. I mean, the best looking rabbit I'd seen in a long time. And I closed the door, and I locked it there, so everything was copacetic, yes. I went back to my chair and I waited. And pretty soon the neighbors came back. The car came into the driveway. Everybody tumbles out of the car. How many kids? I don't know. And they all ran into the house, and some of them went out the back door, and I was just waiting. Pretty quick, I heard the most screaming from the backyard. A bunch of crying going along with the screaming. There was a whole lot of stuff going on. And all the parents came out, and all the kids, we said, it's just the most awful thing. I said, oh, really? What is it? And he said, oh, well, my daughter's favorite rabbit died. Such a sad thing. What do you say? Rabbits do. And I didn't say rabbits do, did I? I didn't. I did not say that. I bit my tongue. I did say rabbits do. And he said, yeah, well, it's, kind of kind of the darndest thing. He said, because her rabbit died yesterday, and we buried him down there underneath the old tree at the end of the yard. And then this afternoon, he showed up back in the door locked and looking all good. And I said, "Whoa, how would you explain that? I don't know, alien abduction, something." And well, interesting story. Never have a good time reburying your rabbit. It says on the program right here. Okay, that's the story of the dug up rabbit.
Raise your hand if you have ever had a favorite toy. All right, my story is about a favorite toy. So, when I was a little girl, my mama bought me a little baby doll using the box top offer off of my favorite cereal. And when she came, she was small enough to fit inside the palm of an adult hand. Combination of firm and squishy. She was my absolute best friend as soon as I laid eyes on her. We did everything together. I slung her head first down the slide before I chased her down that hot piece of metal on my own. Of course, we had tea parties. I also gave her way too many baths. So, and then little things started going like this. Her eyes began to dull. And then gone was the little pink rosebud mouth, gone was the little pink rosebud cheeks, and then she had 2 dark freckles tattooed permanently on each bottom cheek because I would layer her dry on my mama's stack of magazines. So she went from beautiful to very interesting looking really quick. But to me, of course, she was beautiful, about this big and hard. So I very politely played with it for about 30 minutes before I became drawn to my little wounded friend again. From then on, she became my handicap doll. And with the help of my older sister who knew about such things, she convinced me that she was now the perfect candidate to put on USO shows for the wounded troops. So her stage was the backward-facing seat of our 1959 Plymouth station wagon, and the troops were the cars that were behind us. So she would sing, and she would kick her one leg in a can, and she would just put a huge show on for all the cars, and they would clap. I'd get lots of air claps, thumbs up, woo, because she was that good. She lunch. Now we piled out of the hot car. We were all kind of short-tempered and cranky, and my mother turned to me immediately, and she said, "Beth, don't take Ginger inside the restaurant. We're all tired. We're hot. We're going to forget her." And I pitched a fit. I didn't go anywhere without my doll, and my poor, tired mother didn't give me any pushback. She said, "All right." And so we all went in the restaurant, and we proceeded to have my very favorite lunch. I had a hamburger, and inside of it, I stuffed pickles, onions, potato chip, and mustard. And then we finished it off with a very rare present from my parents, which was an ice-cold bottle of grape pop. It was the height of culinary experience for a preschooler. Literally, we were an hour down the road, and we still had hours to go to get to the campsite in another state, before it was dark. So we could not turn around. So as we piled back in the car with somber faces, because at that point Ginger had been a member of our family, we headed on down the road. I didn't ever see her again, except for several years, sometimes I will wake up at night crying because in my dreams I had seen little Ginger sitting in some waste paper basket somewhere. Other times, the city dump, which was even worse.
Nice.
I had separated myself forever from the thing I loved the most. A painful but powerful lesson for a 4-year-old.
He told me it was okay to wear the poncho, but I had to drop it before I came up here. I have been married for almost 50 years. We passed our 49th anniversary. When I had just been married for a few years, we lived in Salt Lake City. And to make a little extra money, all of you who are new married know you always need a little extra money. I mowed the lawn for an English couple. This was a beautiful English couple. They seemed ancient to me. During World War II, she was a spy. And I have questions. As it turns out, I didn't ask enough questions. But it turns out that this was in the late 70s. National secret, I can't remember it now, but it just passed. She was just able to speak about her service in World War II. When World War II started, for those of you who know, most of the adults know, England was on the back foot. They were outgunned, overmatched, expecting an invasion from Germany at any time, and all alone. So they had to be creative. The one thing they had really going for them was their ability to spy and their ability to deceive. She said all the sailors treated her like a little sister. There was a superstition that a woman on board a boat is bad luck, but it seems a smile from a beautiful blonde overcomes that superstition. Now, all of the sailors treated her really well, except for one that I will call the jerk. If you've ever been in a submarine, if you go to San Francisco, you can go into one. The aisles are about that narrow. And every time she passed this jerk, he was inappropriate. And it got so bad that one day she was crying in the mess. One of the other soldiers, concerned, talked to her and found out what happened. He didn't say a word. He got up, spoke with a few other sailors. Now, those sailors got together, met with the jerk, but I couldn't figure it out. As soon as she got within range, she stood up, she waved at the German guards. She said every machine gun was abandoned. All the bunkers were abandoned. Every German boy was out there waving at her. She blew kisses. They all blew kisses back. I don't know how she felt about the German soldiers during the war, but at that time, she was sympathetic. She said they were all lonely. They'd been away from their wives, their families, their girlfriends for months and years. Some of the German soldiers offered to carry her fish, the fish that had the messages inside the fish. They carried her fish to her and would practice on her and offer to buy her coffee. At those times, she would try to get whatever information she could. She said she didn't think she got much information, but MI6 was really happy when that happened. And she passed back that information about where they were bunkered and how many other soldiers were around and things like that. Now, don't think there was any Mata Hari stuff going on. This was just innocent flirting between a young, supposedly French girl and murderous Nazi soldiers. Just innocent stuff. And then she would go to the fish market, pass her messages, get the messages back. And I didn't ask questions about what she did all day in occupied France. I didn't ask questions about how long this took. But she spent all day in occupied France, and then in the evening, she went back in the boat, as you do, because you fish at night, and she went back out and met the submarine, passed the messages. Because if she got caught, being shot was going to be the easy part. But she did this for many years, and then many years after, she kept this secret to herself. Many of you in your life are going to meet people with interesting stories. Ask them about it. Find out, and then pass their stories along. Thank you.
They were getting fed enough, and their living quarters are not very good. I'll be darned if those puppets are going to get the upper hand, you know. Anyway, Mark and I have been together for a long time, so we're just going to sing.
Oh, people. Have to keep him honest.
Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Remember? Here we
May
go.
look ragged and funny,
But we travel along, singing our songs, side by side. We don't know what's coming tomorrow.
maybe it's trouble and sorrow.
As long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all. So when all the losers are parted,
We'll be together as we started, just
singing along, sing the song, side by side, by side.
Very good. See, they can be taught.
You know, this is a hard thing for me to work on because, but Mark has been so patient with me over the years. You know, we never have had any arguments or any trouble at all. It's just amazing, and it's been 14 years, Mark. It's been 14 years.
Seems a lot longer than that.
Oh, yeah, almost 14 years.
I don't think that's right.
Good food. Good food. I had good food.
All right, well, we'll be a little more specific again. What kind of good food?
Really good food. Yeah, it was really good food.
All right, well, you know what, it's a good thing we agree, because I'll always give in and say, you're right, Alan.
Yeah, well, you know, I got a good memory. I remember those things, and we do have good food, and wow, you know, we just never disagree because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you always get to do this by yourself. In fact, why don't you share that little story of yours?
Oh, story of your, oh yeah, we got a story of gonna do this by myself. That was in his way. He couldn't budge or push it. 'Twas a monstrous task, and the only way to move it was for help to. He went to flying when the weather got cool, but he didn't like the flock or other geese, I'm told. So he started out a flying way out on his own, and he didn't even care where other geese had. Yes. We got a little problem here. And they don't think like me. I'll keep my individuality. And I don't need no help. Gonna do this by myself. Well, the ant and the minnow and the bee, they themselves in their work or play. And if you ask them why, this is what they would say. And they don't think like me. I'll keep my individuality. And I don't need no help. Gonna do this by myself. They didn't need no help. They had hard lives all by themselves.
It is a hard life.
Okay, I see a few hands coming up. Great. Because this is a story of a fine young man who was out walking cross country from day to day, and on occasion he would stop and pick something up or pick a flower or something. But this particular day he'd been walking kind of tired and kind of hungry, and he was excited to see a village. He had just been out on the countryside. And so as he walked into the village, he noticed that it was all quiet. All of the windows were closed. All of the doors were closed. There weren't even dogs or cats out running around. But he thought maybe someone would help him. And so he walked up to one of the very first cottages and he knocked on the door. He knocked on the door again, and she opened the door just a little tiny crack. She opened it a tiny crack and she said,
"There'll be some."
"Oh, well," he said, "oh, all right. Well, since nobody's home, maybe I could stop in front of this house and maybe make a little soup for dinner." Well, the woman opened the door and she stepped out and she looked at him and she said, "What do you mean you're going to make some soup out here?" And you don't have to say it, you can just look disgusted. All right. And he said, "Yes, I could make some soup. Well, I could make some soup from this stone. I found it down the road and it looks like it'll be a delicious soup." The pot. Great, come right up. That is absolutely wonderful. And he went to the well and he got some water and brought over a bucket and put it in and he put the stone into the middle of the pot and it started to bubble and bubble. And the little old woman was just mystified and she looked up at him and she said, "Soup from a stone? Fancy that." Well, he said, "Yes, this is great soup, but it would be even better if it had a couple of carrots." Well, she was curious about this and she thought, well, all right. So she sneaked out to her garden right over there and she pulled up a couple of carrots and she brought them back. Now, while she was doing that, two other people came walking up the road. Do I see a couple of people? Welcome. We're making stone soup. And they looked at each other and said, "Stone soup?" And he said, "Yes, and our stone soup is absolutely wonderful, but it would be even better with a couple of sliced onions. Do either of you have access to any onions?" And they looked at each other and said, "Yeah." And so they went away for just a second and they came right back with some onions. Yep, they came right back and they dropped them in and the carrots came and we dropped the carrots in and we dropped the onions and bubbled and the little old lady said, "Soup from a stone, fancy that." Can we all say it? "Soup from a stone, fancy that." Well, the pot bubbled and bubbled and the young man said, "Oh, and a few of your potatoes in our soup." And so he dropped some in and they started to cook and the pot bubbled and bubbled. Well, by now, some of the other people were noticing that something was going on in town. And so another woman started coming down the road. Do I have another woman who could come down the road here? Oh, great, yes, there was a woman wearing a beautiful purple outfit and she came down the road and as she got up there, she said, "What's going on?" And she kind of gestured like that, like, "What's going on?" And everyone said, "We're making stone soup." Can we all say it together? "We're making stone soup. But it would be a lot better if it had a little bit of salt or pepper." And she said, "Oh, I happen to have some right here." And so she pulled out of her pocket some salt and pepper and she shook it in. And the pot bubbled and bubbled and everyone said together, "Soup from a stone, fancy that." Well, the little old lady said, "Should I get some bowls and spoons?" And everybody said, "Oh, we'd love a taste." And so she went back in her house and she got some bowls and spoons and brought them out and gave them to everyone. And everyone scooped up a little bit of the soup and they ate the soup fire out. They all smiled and laughed at each other and said, "Maybe we should do this again." And something happened that day that hadn't happened in that community for a long time. The young man did take his stone back out of his soup, but everyone else realized how important it was to help each other. And they all stood up and took hands with one another. Can we all stand up? Even the pot can join us. and the pots and everyone else in town.
I think this festival gets better every single year. Whether it's the 19th or the 18th, it gets better every year. All right. Our last teller is Tom Manning. He's sometimes called the guy in the purple suit because that tends to be what he wears. He works at Copper Hills High, and he says he has a captive audience all the time at school. So he loves to tell stories, and he says he likes to tell personal tales because he's hoping...
Guys, we've had a couple people do things in verse, a couple lost little girls. I'm mostly just calling out Lance over and over. There's another pattern here. We started with some scary Mormon missionaries and scary spiders, and that's where we're going to end today. So we start with my older brother, James. When James left on his mission, he was told, do not Bible bash. It does not change hearts, and it makes you look like a fool. Now, my older brother wanted to be a diligent, obedient missionary, but he had something of an academic ego and the Word of God with my scriptural mastery. So one day he was walking down the street with his missionary companion, and they encountered someone who didn't look quite as religious as they did, but they recognized them as being missionaries. And he opened violently right off the bat, saying, "Oh, the canon is closed, as it says in Revelations." And my brother countered, "Oh, but Moses said that back in Deuteronomy. Should we close the canon there?" And he said, "Ooh, according to the Roman road, you must only confess with your mouth and believe in your heart." And James countered, "But Christ said to Nicodemus, you must be born of water and of the Spirit." And back and forth they waged war with one scripture, then another, New International Version, no King James Version. And then they said, "Oh, well, what about priesthood?" And James said, "Oh, you must have the priesthood. It was given to the apostles." And he said, "Can you find that, sir?" And James paused. Where in the Bible did it talk about Christ giving priesthood? And then James's companion came in clutch and said, Oh, I can prove this to you." He opened his backpack and he pulled out not a film strip. This is just a picture. He pulled out a picture and said, "Here's a picture of Christ doing it on our own." Myself, I had a different time I had to learn on my own. I had to learn how to deal with spiders. You see, I knew the dads had to deal with spiders. You call in the dad, "Dad, there's a spider," and the dad comes and the threat is neutralized. And this is part of the job of being a dad, apparently. And I was just little, and I didn't know if I could do it. You see, there has been a time when I'd called for my dad. We had been out playing in the backyard, and then we went to the back porch and we were playing on the cement slab, and there was the ceiling over the top, the roof, and then when we looked up, we saw the cat-face spiders. Cat-face spiders are a spider twitching and falling by the dozens, and then my dad would walk over and pop them all. And then my dad felt like he'd set all of our concerns at ease and went inside, and all of us children stared aghast at the horror that we had seen before us. And I went from being a little bit concerned about spiders to being more concerned about spiders. I don't think I could dad like that. A couple of years later, a friend of mine said, "Hey, it's Halloween. Do you want to come over to my house and watch a movie?" And I said, "Sure." So I went out to my friend's house for Halloween. My friend lived out in the country. And there's more critters out there in the country. We had to drive along an old canal bank and then go down into his house. I went into his house and we went to the basement, and then we went to the under basement. And there was a TV and a couch and a fireplace, and my friend said, "I looked on the couch and 3 hobo spiders crawled out from underneath." Yeah, hobo spiders are filthy things named by people who don't like spiders or hobos, either one. That thing is a hobo spider. Yeah. And then the third reason is because we're watching the movie Arachnophobia. Of course. Not too close to the couch, not too close to the doorway behind the TV, not too close to the fireplace. And when my friend said, "Hey, do you want to just stay the night tonight?" I'm like, "No, I'm going home into the city where there's less critters crawling around." And I was scared. I realized then I was scared of spiders. I kept looking behind me in the shower, making sure I was alone in there and stuff. Oh, spiders. Then I found a path forward from my friend Brian. I was in high school, and Brian showed up. He's like, "Oh, the scariest thing happened this morning." What was it? There was a spider. What happened? He's like, well, it was crawling across the floor and I went to step on it, but I missed. You know how most spiders just like freeze and pretend they're dead? Or they skitter off, pretend like they never existed there? This one must have been one of them brown, recluse, aggressive house spiders, because he just sat there, stared at me with his 8 eyes, reared back on his hind legs and waved the front ones at me. I'm like, that I could take a spider. I'm not bigger than very many things, but a spider? Yeah, how dare it? And my fear turned to wrath. Whenever I saw a spider and got that prickling, uncomfortable feeling, I'm like, oh, spider, that was your last sin. You shall die now. And I'd move furniture and I'd upset stuff and that spider would be gone. So maybe I'd gained the courage enough to do the dad thing. I don't know. Then I went on my mission to Florida. And more missionaries and spiders at the same time. I went to Florida. Now in Florida, the bugs get bigger there because it doesn't get cold. It may have been called banana spider because it was big enough that had it wanted to, it could have just peeled a banana and eaten it. They strung their webs between the lines on the electrical lines. You could walk on the street and see them trying to catch small birds or airplanes. One day I was walking down the path and right on the edge was jungle-like undergrowth because this was Florida, that's how it rolled there. And I saw a banana spider like right there. And I took out a Book of Mormon and held it up in size comparison and he snatched it out of my hands, flipped through a couple pages, handed back and said he wasn't interested. That's just kind of how it went. And I found the Word of God. I found a Bible. Now, lest you believe that I would defile the Bible, I made sure first off that it was still wrapped in plastic. This was one of those that we handed out, so this was still kosher, I promise. And I tried to kill the spider and it dodged, and I tried to kill the spider, it went on the wall. I tried to kill the spider and then it went and it stopped. So I grabbed the Bible and I wound back and I plunged my arm, and I also realized that when you Bible bash, you don't change hearts, and you're made to look like a fool. Thank you very much.
I mean, we've learned all these good things. We've learned some Japanese culture. We've learned about Bible bashing. We've learned what to do and not do with spiders and other activities that are called spidering that aren't quite the same kind of spiders. We learned about cooking. We've learned about working together. We've learned a lot of amazing things today. So anybody that tells you that storytelling is not education, we've also learned how to take care of dead rabbits. And how to take care of dolls too. We learned a little bit about what to do with dolls and with our favorite toys, and a little bit about World War II and the spy. This has been an amazing festival. I appreciate all of you coming out on this very cold night, but isn't it nice